The pregnant widow bought a cottage by the sea, but the ocean knew her secret. This sounds impossible, but I swear every word I'm about to share happened exactly as I'm telling you in Mystic Beach, Maine, last summer. Before I continue this true supernatural account, subscribe to hear the full story that forever changed my understanding of life and death. The waves crashed against the rocks with a fury that echoed the whispers of voices beneath the surface, calling my name like a haunting lullaby no living soul could hear. The salty air grew dense and heavy, and as I paced along the shore, I could swear I felt the cool touch of invisible hands brush against my arms, as if the ocean itself was keenly aware of my fears and sorrows. The scent of brine mixed with a fleeting sweetness of jasmine bloomed from nowhere, wrapping me in memories I had not yet made, while a metallic taste of dread clung to my tongue whenever I sat alone on the craggy bluff, staring into the abyss of dark waters. It was within those moments that the horrors truly began, with my husband lost to the sea just months before in a fishing accident. This dilapidated cottage was meant to be my sanctuary, but every night brought new terrors. I would wake in a shivering panic, convinced I could see shadowy figures advancing from the waves, elongating in the moonlight as they reached toward my unborn child, leaving frost-kissed imprints on the windows despite the summer heat. Each wave that lapped against the shore held a piece of my grief, and the spirits of those lost to the ocean's depths were not merely watching, but seeking, desperate for my acknowledgement. They roamed closer each night, their whispers growing ever more plaintive, scratching at the windows as if to be let in, to share their stories. Questions of duty and retribution clashed violently in my mind, old superstitions I had dismissed now bubbling to the surface. What did those shadows want from me? The spectral figures felt so familiar, I could hardly tell where my sorrow ended and their haunting began. As terror laced with sorrow enveloped my nights, I found myself drawn into a memory of old tales my grandmother used to tell. Stories of drowned sailors pleading for someone to hear their cries and carry forth their legacies. I remembered how she would lower her voice, her eyes growing wide as she spoke of the deep, how it held more than just fish and fibers, but the restless spirits of those who'd vanished beneath the waves. "They are waiting," she would say. "They just want to be remembered." Determined to confront these phantoms, I summoned what courage I had left. I refused to allow fear to harm my child, looking deep into the shadows rising from the waves and beckoning toward me, inhaling the cold, salty air with a fragile resolve that felt alien to me. One fateful evening, I finally confronted one of the shadowy figures as its transparent form drifted closer, my voice shaky yet resolute. "What do you want from me?" I called into the dark, the air heavy with an electric tension. The ocean falling still, waiting for an answer that hung palpably in the abyss. A silence enveloped me, wrapping around my heart like a vice. And just when I thought the moment would drown me whole, I heard a voice, soft yet profound, almost like the song of the sea. "I need you to listen," came the response. Surprisingly calm, yet laden with an urgency that chilled my bones. "We were lost. We are forgotten." Instead of succumbing to fear, I felt an overwhelming wave of empathy crash over me as the spectral forms shifted, their elongated silhouettes transforming to reflect the narratives of their once vibrant lives. I learned through whispered tales of regret and longing, of promises unfulfilled, as they revealed the fate of those who sailed before, trapped between this world and the next, their stories crying out for compassion. As the figures hovered in the twilight, I could see their eyes, no longer fierce and cold, but filled with a deep ache, resonating my own sorrow. Haunted by this new understanding, I began to scour the town for any records of the deceased, exploring the small library and reaching out to the local historian. It was a quest for connection, a yearning to grasp the stories entwined with my own. Just as hope replaced despair, I unearthed names that were lost to the sea's merciless grasp, and I felt alive with purpose. Each revelation greets me like the dawn after a long night, transforming my fear into clarity as I held commemorations on the shore to honor them. As I placed seashells and flowers with trembling hands, the tide seemed to shift with me, as if responding to my call. What I once experienced as terror transformed into understanding, making it clear that their desperate calls were not meant to frighten, but rather compel. Standing at the edge of that vast ocean, with my heart wide open and a newfound sense of belonging, I reached out, believing firmly that sometimes the most haunted places cradle not evil, but truths waiting to come alive. The shadows that had once felt like predators now shimmered with purpose, their presence softening, the whispers of the ocean no longer a lament, but a gentle reminder we were all woven together through loss and love. In this moment, the cottage that once mirrored my isolation began transforming into a sanctuary of healing where I could finally feel alive with both the living and the souls of the sea. The ocean that once knew my grief now cradled it, acting not as a haunt, but a nurturing embrace. And as my heart softened under the weight of understanding, I could finally breathe without dread, grateful for the ocean's whispers that transformed my personal loss into a recognition of life and death, intricately tied together in a divine tapestry, waiting to be woven anew. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over Mystic Beach as I stood on the craggy bluff, my heart a tangled blend of grief and purpose. Each wave crashing against the rocks was no longer just a reminder of what I lost, but transformed into a symphony of voices desperate to be heard. I felt their presence growing stronger, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for me to acknowledge their stories. Before I continue this true supernatural account, subscribe to dive deeper into what I learned about the ocean's whispers. The cool wind wrapped around me, and for a moment I closed my eyes, absorbing the vibrant energies swirling in the air, feeling connected to something larger than myself. But even in my newfound resolve, uncertainty began to creep in. What if confronting the souls tethered to this place brought danger? What if their sorrow manifested into something worse? I shook my head, scolding myself for allowing fear to intrude when I had come so far. I needed courage because this was not just about me anymore. It was about protecting my child. As the weeks passed, the days stretched longer, and I felt the gentle kicks of my unborn child, a constant reminder of new life growing within me. With every movement, my protective instinct surged, eclipsing the flickers of fear. "I will keep you safe," I whispered into the night, reaffirming my commitment to both my child and the memories of the lost. The air grew heavier with the weight of promises yet unmade, and I was determined to honor their stories, those souls who had wandered for too long without acknowledgement. If only I could understand the shadows that haunted me, the specters ebbing and flowing with the tide. They were not mere phantoms, I realized, but harbingers of truths long buried beneath the waves. If you've ever felt that inexplicable pull towards something you couldn't quite explain, you know the chill that surged through me each time I glimpsed their dark forms swirling in the moonlight. With determination burning in my chest, I returned to the town library, an ocean of knowledge nestled within its unassuming walls. The scent of aged paper wrapped around me like a comforting blanket as I investigated records of shipwrecks, fishermen lost at sea, and tales of sailors who had ventured forth only to be swallowed by the very waters that had given them life. Each revelation was like the dawn breaking after a long night, transforming my fear into clarity. As I pieced together fragments of their lives, I began to recognize familiar names, each one entwined with my own, and I felt a flicker of belonging ignite within my heart. Days turned into weeks of meticulous research, until I finally gathered a small group of community members who shared my newfound zeal for honoring the lost. Together, we began planning a memorial by the shore, an event that would pay tribute to those lost at sea, allowing them to find solace in remembrance. If you felt the energy shift when people unite for a common cause, you understand the warmth that enveloped me. Excitement coursed through the group, and every conversation seemed to imbue new life into the shadows of the past. However, as the sun dipped below the horizon one evening, a strange energy filled the air, thickening like the mist rising off the ocean. I stood on the shore, preparing for our gathering, and a quiet voice, a whisper, called out from the water, threading its way through the crashing waves. "Help us," it beckoned, its urgency piercing the cool evening air and sending a shiver up my spine. My heart raced. An unsettling energy washed over me as I faced the waves, feelings of trepidation surging within. What was meant to be a memorial now felt heavier. What if I was inviting something dangerous? But I couldn't retreat. I felt compelled to stand firm in my resolve. "What do you want?" I murmured, the powerful swell of the ocean lapping against my feet, a mix of fear and anticipation coursing through me. "It is time," the voice echoed, cold yet insistent, making my heartbeat quicken. The watery silhouettes of past souls gathered around me, shifting in the darkness. They were no longer threatening. I began to understand they yearned for recognition and acknowledgement, not vengeance. "You will remember us," they insisted, as if binding me to their fates with invisible threads. Determined to truly listen, I inhaled deeply, letting the salt-laden air swirl around me as I closed my eyes. "I will," I promised, knowing this was no idle vow. I was a vessel not only for my child, but for those lost at sea. With that commitment rising within me, the waves surged eagerly in response, as if the very ocean appreciated my intent. As I gazed into the depths, I felt the spirit of the ocean acknowledge and accept my resolve. The water whispered stories that begged to be acknowledged, stories waiting for someone willing to weave them into a greater fabric of remembrance. What I had once feared became the vital force of life, connecting us all. The past intertwining with the present, like the tides that rhythmically rose and fell. And though uncertainty lingered in the shadows, I felt ready, as though the ocean had become my ally, guiding me deeper into its mysteries and revealing the intricate emotional threads that bound us all together across time and space. In that moment, I realized that together we could reshape the narrative woven through pain and loss, allowing the voices once lost at sea to finally rise, telling their stories as they merged with my own. As the first light of dawn unfurled across the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, I awoke with a sense of purpose that felt nearly electric. The gentle whispers of the ocean still lingered in my dreams, urging me to remember the souls longing for acknowledgement. I knew I had to act. This was no longer just about me or my child. It extended to all those who had perished in the depths of these waters. I grabbed my notebook and pen, the only tools I needed to capture the stories that yearned to break free. Time slipped away as I sketched the initial outlines of the memorial, pouring my heart into every word. I could almost hear their voices, an ensemble of long-lost hopes and dreams echoing through my mind. As I wrote, I felt a strange sensation, an awareness that something was shifting around me. There was an energy bouncing off the walls of my cottage, making it feel alive, as though the very spirit of the sea was guiding my hand. Days blended into nights as I organized the event with renewed vigor, enlisting others in the community to join the cause. At first, there were murmurs, cautious questions about what this gathering would entail. But as more people learned of the purpose behind it, skepticism transformed into curiosity. They too felt the urgency of recognizing what had been ignored for far too long. If you've ever sensed a presence in an empty room, you understand the pull of this mission, I announced at our first planning session, rallying the small group of people gathered in the local cafe. Each of them nodded, some with misty eyes. Without me needing to say more, they understood. We were united by grief, longing, and an unwavering hope to reach beyond the veil. While plans unfolded, I delved deeper into the stories I had begun to uncover. I spent countless hours in the library, piecing together the fragments of lost histories, sailors who had faced storms fiercer than any they had encountered, families waiting on distant shores for loved ones who would never return. The grief of these communities stretched across generations, and it was evident that to honor the lost was to heal the wounds of the living. But as I began to touch the layers of their stories, a shadow shifted uneasily within me. I could feel moments where the air grew heavy, and an unexpected chill seeped through my bones. Each time my pen glided across the page, the feeling of being watched intensified. My heart raced, but I pressed on, driven by the significance of my mission. If these souls wanted their stories known, I felt a profound responsibility to deliver them. Then, the night before the memorial, everything changed. As I prepared the last lights for our gathering, shadows flickered in the corners of my room. A powerful wind whipped through the cottage, sending chills racing down my spine. The weight of the atmosphere thickened, and before I could react, the whispers became audible, a cacophony of voices swirling together in a harmonious, haunting chorus. "Help us!" they pleaded once more, the urgency electrifying the air around me. My heart pounded in response, and as I looked out toward the ocean, the moon appeared, casting a silvery light over the water. I watched waves glimmer like scattered diamonds, and in that moment, clarity surged through me. They were not asking for mere recognition. They were seeking closure, an end to their torment, a way to be freed. The chilling realization washed over me. "I will honor you," I promised, my voice steady despite the tremors in my heart. "I will tell your stories. You will not be forgotten." The whispers subsided slightly, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude that flooded the room, warm and palpable. The next day arrived in a rush. Its golden sunlight enveloped the beach in a soft glow as the community gathered. As I looked out at the sea of faces, I felt a swell of pride rise within me. Together, we had built something beautiful, a memorial constructed from love and remembrance. Colorful flowers decorated the shoreline, driftwood sculptures told tales all their own, and the air carried the scent of incense meant to honor spirits finding their way home. As the ceremony began, I stepped forward clutching my notebook, the sacred vessel of their stories. I recounted tales of bravery, love, and loss, each passage imbued with the deep emotional ties we now shared. With every name I uttered, I cast a shimmering thread of connection between the living and the lost. I could feel the sea's energy shift, almost like a blurred mirror reflecting the joy and sorrow of the gathering. But then, as I reached the climax of the ceremony, a sudden gust of wind swept across the beach. I turned to the sound, heart racing, and a hush fell over the crowd. The surface of the water began to ripple, reflecting the bright sun's rays in a dazzling array. "It's them," I whispered, emotion choking my words. "They're here." The crowd held their breath. The wind summoned whispers, the very voices I had channeled in the days prior. Every soul longed for acknowledgement, and I could sense their joy cascading around us like waves of healing energy. What I had faced once as fear transformed into a profound sense of peace, a realization that we were all stitched together in a tapestry of remembrance, woven together by grief and love that transcends time. As the ocean lapped gently against the shore, I understood at last. Sometimes, in facing the shadows of our past, we bring light to the present. Today, those who had been lost found a small measure of peace in the gold-streaked tide. In those moments, we was truly one, standing on the precipice of the past and the future, trembling yet liberated, acknowledging that every story mattered. And so, together, we would remember. As the echoes of our gathering faded into the gentle wash of the waves, an undeniable sense of rippling calm enveloped the beach. The energy was palpable, blending laughter and tears, a symphony of collective remembrance. While warmth settled over us, I sensed something deeper still waiting to be uncovered, an earnest call to explore the stories that had long been submerged beneath the surface of time. Driven by an overwhelming sense of responsibility, I decided to embark on a journey to unearth and confront the tragedies that had woven themselves into the very fabric of our shoreline. I knew I had to visit the sites where lives had been lost, to push through the whispers of fear and connect the threads of history to our present. These souls deserved an acknowledgement that stretched far beyond the confines of our memories. With my notebook in hand, the map spread out before me, I set out at dawn's break, an early mist cloaking the coastal expanse like a shroud. The coastline, with its jagged rocks and hidden coves, called to me as I imagined the tales of sailors entrapped by fierce storms and families left grieving on distant shores. Each stop would not merely be a walk down memory lane, it was a pilgrimage to connect the past to the living stories within us all. My first destination was Black Rock Cove, the grave of innumerable sailors lost during violent summer storms. Upon arriving, I felt an oppressive energy weighing down the air, a sorrow that seeped from the rocky cliffs surrounding me. I took a deep breath, allowing the salty breeze to fill my lungs. "I'm here to listen," I declared into the tempest, praying the echo would reach the souls still lingering among the tides. The waves crashed rhythmically, wrapping me in a soundscape of longing and loss. As I stood there, a vision began to unfold. Waterborne figures shimmered at the water's edge, light refracting around them like a protective aura. I could hear their laughter intermingling with the crashing sound, a bittersweet reminder of life. "We remember you," I shouted, and in that moment, the sea seemed to respond, the force of the waves swaying as though the very waters rejoiced in their acknowledgement. Rejuvenated, I pressed toward my next stop, the salt marsh. Once a vibrant fishing ground, now it lay still under untamed grass, shrouded in silence. With purpose, I stepped into the marsh, feeling goosebumps ripple across my skin. "Why do you linger here?" I asked, feeling a chill brush against my cheek. The air changed. I could almost hear the echoes of lives once full of laughter trickling through the reeds, blending with the whispers of the water. As I opened my notebook and began to recount the names and stories I had gathered, I sensed the ground react beneath my feet. Suddenly, handprints appeared in the muddy bank, tiny impressions shaped like small fingers grasping for attention. I felt they were not merely remnants of the past, but a profound connection, as if time had folded in on itself, allowing their ghosts to rise in collective hope. Overwhelmed with emotion, I vowed to keep honoring these souls in as many ways as I could. No longer merely shadows, they had become a part of my journey, woven into my experiences. With each location I visited, spirits seemed to gather closer, their yearning for acknowledgement wrapped around me like an embrace. Yet still, I sensed that I needed to honor their requests more fully. As night began to fall, I realized I had one last, desperate measure to take. I would hold a vigil beneath the moon, a gathering that would blend light and dark, spirit and flesh. But this time, it would be more than a remembrance. It would be a collaboration, a chance for the living to receive the guidance of the dead. Word spread through the community about what I planned, both thrilling and frightening many. Yet their curiosity outweighed their fears, and soon we were gathering again under the luminous moonlight, candles illuminating the beach, the air thick with incense. I could feel the energy shifting, a collective heartbeat echoing around us. "We gather not apart from our lost ones, but with them," I began, locking eyes with those around me. "Tonight, we bridge the span of the living and the dead." As I recounted our mission, I saw the way light from the candles flickered in agreement, illuminating figures just at the edge of my vision. There was an ancient power in sharing our grief and love aloud, a sacred alchemy forming around our intentions as we called upon spirits to join us. Each shared story, every whispered name, was met with mutual vibrancy, as if the ocean itself listened. It was as though a chain formed between us, each link reinforcing our connection to those lost. Suddenly, as I reached the climax of our vigil, a gust of wind swept through, extinguishing our candles momentarily. In that whisper of darkness, I felt the collective breath of the crowd as every heart quickened. Then, just as swiftly, raw energy surged through the candles. The winds stilled, bringing forth clarity. "It's them," I trembled, infused with emotion. "They are here with us." The crowd held its breath in harmony, unified by reverence for those they had lost. As I spoke, I felt immense warmth encircle us. The very essence of the ocean swept around our feet, soft, inviting, urging us to remember everything that lay beneath the surface. Finally, as the moon cast its silver glow upon the land and sea, I realized the power of this moment. In that convergence of breaths, tears, and stories, we collectively wove a tapestry of remembrance filled with love. The shades of the past no longer haunted us. They danced by our sides, transformed into guides, lighting our path toward healing. On that beach, light met shadow, and every soul connected under the vastness of a shared experience. Together, we had transformed the narrative of loss, embracing the connection of remembrance and hope. The ocean, now alive with the whispers of those we honored, stood by us, a witness and a participant in the ever-evolving tale of life. No longer did we fear the depths. Instead, we embraced them, grateful for the opportunity to recognize that each story mattered, and every soul deserved to be remembered. As the last echoes of our vigil faded into the gentle rhythm of the waves, a profound stillness settled over the beach. Lanterns flickered, throwing shadows that danced across the sand as if the spirits we honored were weaving through the light. I could feel an intoxicating mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, a deep sense of fulfillment enveloping us. This communal act had not only bridged the gap between the living and the lost, but had united us in shared purpose and healing. With the ceremony behind us, it became clear that my journey had just begun. The spirits had revealed themselves as more than echoes of sorrow. They were teachers, guiding me toward a greater understanding of our connection. I felt compelled to delve deeper into their stories, to bring the weight of their experiences into the light, and transform their tragic pasts into narratives that would resonate throughout the community. I envisioned a series of gatherings where we would share, celebrate, and learn from these eternal souls. In the following weeks, I immersed myself in research, poring over old town records, interviewing local historians, and seeking out descendants of those lost at sea. I found myself endlessly captivated by the intricate tales of bravery, resilience, and love. The ocean, it seemed, held more than just the whispers of the departed. It cradled lessons to be learned, its depths rich with the energy of all who had crossed its paths. Each session of storytelling at the community center breathed life into the figures of the past. Stories connected costume-clad children reenacting fishing expeditions with their ancestors, families sharing their connection to lost voyages, and the lessons passed down through generations. The laughter that echoed off the walls mingled with stories of heartache and loss, each tale a sparkling thread in the growing tapestry of our shared heritage. You see, the ocean isn't just a graveyard, it's the essence of who we are, I would say, as I stoked the fires of inspiration around me. We owe it to those who came before us to ensure they are remembered, to give them a voice. Together, we unearthed the buried memories that lived between us, the connections that had echoed like crashing waves, forgotten over time. As warmth filled our hearts, I began to feel the transformative power of these shared stories. It became apparent that not only the deceased needed our attention, but also the living, those who continued to navigate their own turbulent waters, grappling with their own pains. The act of remembrance was healing, not just for those we honored, but for us, the living, and the stories we carried in our hearts. It knit tightly the fabric of community, forming an unbreakable bond. With each gathering, I felt as though I was becoming a channel through which these stories flowed. They came alive as we heard of fathers who used to teach their children how to navigate by the stars, mothers who prayed for safe passages as they tended to their families, and lovers who waited on shores for a promise to return. The experiences might have been separated by time, but resonated deeply within all of us. Yet amid the shared joy, there were still whispers of darkness, stories of tragedies that weighed heavy on our souls. I felt the longing to help those who still bore the scars of loss, yearning for peace. The more I listened, the more I understood. Closure wasn't merely an end, it was a beginning, an opportunity to recognize pain, to transform it into something that fueled personal growth and community strength. One bittersweet afternoon, while sifting through dusty archives, I stumbled upon an old account recounting a shipwreck that had occurred decades ago. A devastating accident that had taken many lives and left families fractured. Sallow pages documented not just the loss, but the resulting repercussions that cascaded through years. As I read through the words, I felt the need for acknowledgement rise like a tide within me. These souls deserved their stories told, and the anguish they left behind should not be forgotten. With urgency, I organized a special gathering dedicated to the victims of that shipwreck. The community showed up, their eyes filled with curiosity and empathy as I recounted the details, painting a vivid picture of the lives lost and the families fractured. Each name I spoke felt like a small candle igniting hope amidst the shadows. Suddenly, a gust of wind passed through the space, bringing with it a flurry of whispers as if the spirits themselves had joined us in our endeavor. The room tingled with energy, candlelight flickered, illuminating the faces around me. Through my tears, I felt the presence of those lost souls, loyal witnesses eager for recognition. Tonight, we honor you, I declared, my voice resolute amidst the haunting whispers. We recognize your sacrifice and carry your stories into tomorrow. You will not be forgotten. Each word resonated through the crowd, every pulse feeling like a heartbeat of solidarity, a collective embrace of those no longer lost. In the weeks that followed, a transformation unfolded around us. Families began to share their own legacies, the pain of their loved ones intertwined with joy as stories surfaced. The ocean became our muse. We wrote songs in tribute to the souls we cherished. We painted murals along the shore, and we established a tradition of remembrance that transcended seasons. But amid the growing warmth in our community, I sensed fear lurking just below the surface. Questions surfaced, asking whether we were ready to carry the burden of responsibility that came with such stories. With unwavering resolve, I knew we had to face those fears head-on. The ocean would always be a double-edged sword. It brought us closer to our history, but it was also the source of grief. As we gathered for our monthly stories by the sea, I felt a gust of wind ripple through the crowd, raising goosebumps on my skin. In that moment, I understood that while we nurtured our bond with remembrance and love, we also had to confront the sorrow. It echoed like a warning, urging us to remain vigilant and compassionate toward each other, to ensure we never repeated the mistakes of the past. Tonight, we embrace love, but we don't dismiss our pain, I said, my voice steady as I addressed the crowd. Let's create a pact, all of us, vowing to bear witness to the struggles of those around us. Acknowledging wounds is part of healing. If we lift each other up, the weight of grief will become lighter. As we sat on the vibrating sands and shared stories, I recognized the lines of connection stretched outward like roots entwined beneath the surface. We stood not as individuals fractured by loss, but as a collective, powerful force, every soul strengthened by the embrace of remembrance. That night, a new tradition was born, the Circle of Remembrance, a living memorial that would endure as long as we chose to tell and acknowledge the stories that wove us together. Just as the tides ebbed and flowed, so too would our commitment to shaping a community that honored the past while encouraging every soul to chart a brighter, shared future. I realized then that while the ocean held the cries of the lost, it also embraced the voices of the living, those of us who would shape the tales of those who came before us. And as our lives became intertwined, we renewed our bond with the sea, promising to ensure every story mattered, every soul recognized. Together, we were here, not just remembering, not merely mourning, but creating a legacy that would resonate across generations, a testimony of love, courage, and unbreakable connection. As the circle of remembrance took root in our community, it blossomed like wildflowers in spring, colorful and vibrant against the backdrop of our shared grief. Each time we gathered by the water's edge, I could feel the energy shift, a magnetic force drawing us closer, intertwining our souls as we passionately embraced both the joy and sorrow we carried. It became more than just a ritual. It was a celebration of life and the stories that shaped us. Our storytellers' evenings framed the sky in a tapestry of colors. Each story shared igniting flames of healing and connection. The crackling fire illuminated faces both familiar and new, allowing laughter to punctuate the sorrowful moments. A reminder that happiness and grief need not exist in isolation. This juxtaposition was essential, and I could sense how everyone leaned into it, letting the warmth of community seep into their bones as we honored those silenced by death. We began crafting tangible expressions of our memories, creating a collective memory mural. Families painted vibrant scenes of their loved ones, sailing adventures for the fishermen, flower gardens for the mothers, and starlit evenings for those lost too soon. Each brushstroke held a story, and as they layered paint onto canvas, a new belief emerged. Our shared narratives had the power not to erase the past, but to transform it into a living legacy. I watched as the mural grew into a colorful representation of loss and love, a masterpiece of honor framed by the elements of nature. However, not all evenings unfolded in harmony. One such night, the tension in the air crackled like static electricity. Whispers had spread. There were murmurings of division among us, a collision of perspectives rooted in the depths of our grief. Differing cultural backgrounds and family histories collided. As I looked across the gathering, I realized that while we stood under one roof, we each carried jagged puzzles that resisted fitting together. The shadow of misunderstanding flickered like the faltering flames of our bonfire. Pausing, I leaned into my instinct to address the struggle brimming beneath the surface. "Tonight," I began, "we gather in both light and shadow. It's time to acknowledge that every story matters, whether it brings joy or pain, laughter or tears." The gust of wind was in agreement, as if the universe itself acknowledged our conflicting emotions. Let's create the space for discussions to unfold, where every narrative can find its voice without fear of judgment. And so we embarked on an unpredictable journey through discomfort. At times, voices rose, emotions flaring like wildfires as we wrestled with the immense weight of expectations and cultural differences. Yet, as I witnessed each unspoken truth rise from the depths, I understood that vulnerability could crack open the hardest shells. Tears were shed, by me and others, as we shared alternative interpretations of grief and loss shaped by unique experiences and backgrounds. Growing up, we related loss to cycles of nature. One elder shared, his voice carrying the weight of wisdom. "Death isn't the end, but part of a continuous journey." His words hung in the air like smoke, prompting nods of recognition. Others built on this, weaving the stories together to form a broader understanding that embraced the intersections of all beliefs. By the end of the evening, we emerged from the storm of emotions, exhausted but resolute. There was a unifying energy pulsing through us, a collective consciousness that had grown from the ashes of our discussions. The circle of remembrance had once again transcended its boundaries, evolving from a simplistic ritual into a dynamic forum that honored conflicting feelings, diverse heritages, and shared humanity. We wrapped our arms around one another, acknowledging the mutual strength we had drawn from each other. As summer gave way to autumn, we decided to hold a larger gathering, celebrating not just the dead, but the living who had transformed through the circle. We crafted an event open to all, to welcome the community at large, encompassing broader narratives that inspired courage and connection. I envisioned lanterns released upon the water, each carrying a message of remembrance. The idea caught fire among us, and together we organized an enchanting event to show the world the heart of our mission. The night arrived, and our coastal town flourished with decorations that spilled across the beach, twinkling lights, colorful banners, and vibrant art installations displaying our stories. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as laughter merged with the rhythmic lapping of the waves. The challenge had been monumental: logistics of food, musical acts, and decorations, but the spirit fueling our passion breathed life into the effort. As the lanterns flickered and were released into the dark sea, I stood on the shoreline, reflecting on how far we had come. Memories intertwined and danced with every breath. Each bloated lantern that rose from our hands into the sky glowed softly. Like our voices, they reflected light in a symphony of remembrance. This is who we are, I thought, stepping back to take it all in. This is what we've built together. One by one, stories were shared amidst flickering light, our collective histories creating a rich tapestry of legacy. We welcomed those who had come to witness our tribute and share in the circle. Tears of laughter and grief flowed freely. This was the beating heart of the event, a bridge connecting the past with the present. Yet, amidst the glow, I caught sight of a shadow flickering at the edge of the festivity, an unsettling reminder that life often teetered on a knife's edge between joy and despair. I felt the urge to confront my haunting memories again. Burdening tensions had arisen from unresolved experiences, and I sensed that we encroached upon a more profound reckoning. Late in the evening, I made my way to an isolated stretch of beach. The lanterns faded in the distance. I felt the pull of the ocean, the tide whispering forgotten secrets. As the cool water washed over my feet, I recalled my father's face, those quiet moments by the shore where laughter mingled with silence. I closed my eyes, allowing the memories to wash over me, feeling dual pangs of love and loss seize my heart. And then, right before I reached out for the water, a small voice broke the quiet. "Can you hear them?" I turned to find a child standing nearby, peering into the depths. The ones that swim below, they're telling stories too. The innocence in her eyes struck something deep within me. In that moment, light broke through the darkness I had been carrying. "Yes," I replied, my heart swelling. "They have their stories to tell." I knelt down and met her gaze. Sometimes, even when they're gone, those we loved always have lessons for us. They teach us how to let our hearts speak freely. Later that night, surrounded by the aglow of our lanterns swaying gently with the tide, I realized both pain and joy danced in harmony. We forged forward, not as solitary entities, but as a vast interconnected web, each thread a voice woven into the fabric of our community. As these memories melded together, I felt an unspeakable gratitude toward the ocean, an unyielding force that reminded us life flows like water, each wave lapping against the shore, leaving marks that could never diminish. We would continue to honor the departed while also cherishing the exquisite connections we formed, breathing life into our legacy in ways that could not be shaken. The night settled upon us like a soft shroud of stars, and in the whisper of the waves, I knew this was just the beginning of the tides we would ride together. The circle of remembrance had become our vessel, charting a course cutting through sorrow and into healing, teaching us all the immeasurable power found in an open heart. We would carry our stories forward, illuminating the depths of our ocean with memories forged in love and resilience, unearthing treasures that lay beneath the surface, a testament to our collective endurance and hope. As the circle of remembrance continued to grow, our community found renewed purpose in honoring not just our past, but the rich tapestry of diverse futures ahead. Inspired by the healing ritual of lanterns, We embraced themed storytelling nights that allowed us to explore our cultural heritages. Each gathering was infused with shared laughter and unveiled hidden stories, transforming our grief into a celebration of life. People began to attend our events with greater enthusiasm, bringing their traditions, recipes, and stories woven through generations. One evening, a local historian shared tales of shipwrecks and coastal legends, painting vivid images of how storms tested not only vessels, but the spirits of those who lived by the sea. He spoke passionately about resilience and the enduring connection to our ancestors. "The sea reflects our struggles," he said. "It mirrors the storms within us, reminding us to honor both the waves and the calm." I watched as the flames of our fire flickered in agreement, the warmth bringing us closer together. Empowered by shared narratives, we launched a project to involve our youth. We invited local students to engage with their families, collecting oral histories and personal stories about their loved ones. They transformed into storytellers and bearers of legacies, eager to connect their pasts with the present. One afternoon, I found Sarah, who had lost her brother, sitting quietly by the shore, sketching the waves. Seeing her immersed, I approached with a warm smile. "How's your project coming along?" I asked. She hesitated before nodding thoughtfully. "I started writing about him," she admitted. "It feels good, but it also hurts." The vulnerability in her voice pierced my heart. "Writing is a powerful way to reflect and heal," I encouraged. "Each word can carry his spirit forward, and you don't have to bear that alone." She smiled softly, her eyes glimmering as if a newfound understanding dawned within her. As our community engaged in discussions, we introduced healing workshops by the shoreline, meditation circles, and expressive art sessions to help us explore our grief. Each gathering became a refuge, guiding us deeper into understanding ourselves and each other. In these moments, we encouraged dialogue around emotional struggles, recognizing that acknowledging pain was a vital part of our healing. One workshop resulted in a beautiful mural dedicated to our community's collective losses. Colors, bright and dark, fused into waves crashing against the shore. Each brushstroke came alive with meaning, inviting people from all walks of life to contribute their personal narratives. As the mural grew, so too did our sense of togetherness, the very essence of what the circle of remembrance was meant to embody. But soon, the horizon grew cloudy with tensions that began to surface within our community. As the energy shifted, I could see it simmering beneath the surface, revealing divisions arising from differences in how we experienced loss and expressed grief. The atmosphere thickened, and whispers filled the air. Discussions that had previously blossomed into understanding were now hindered by misunderstanding. It was then, standing at the very epicenter, that I too felt the weight of these fraying edges and resolved to address them head-on. "Everyone has a different story," I began one evening, gathering our group by the flickering candlelight, "and it's crucial that we listen with open hearts. Discomfort can be a catalyst for growth, but only if we choose to lean into it." The openness shifted the atmosphere. I could feel walls slowly crumbling, replaced by a willingness to engage. Instead of avoiding our differences, we transformed them into shared conversations. Voices rose and dipped, filled with longing and connection. This space became a mosaic of hearts open to the possibility of understanding. Months passed, and the darkness that threatened began to lift. Through heartfelt discussions, we learned to embrace empathy, and our circle became infused with strength. Differences transformed into bridges rather than barriers, and the winds of change began to carry us forward once more. As the seasons shifted, we prepared for another community event, the anniversary of our first Lantern Festival. This time, it was not only a remembrance of those we lost, but a celebration of the ties that bound us all. Friends and families gathered at the beach, and I felt a sense of excitement in the air as old grievances had begun to fade. On the night of the event, the shoreline came alive with laughter and music, Families lit colorful lanterns, watching as they floated gently across the water, a constellation of memories shining brightly in the dark. But what struck me most was the sight of our mural, beautifully reflecting each story woven through colorful inscriptions of memory. Under the stars, one by one we shared our narratives of loss, healing, and connection. Each shared story illuminated the significance of our bond and the love that glinted even in pain. With each flicker of candlelight, it felt like our collective spirit danced, intertwining in ways I had never imagined possible. As the night grew older, I found myself standing at the water's edge. The moon cast silver rays upon the shore, and the gentle murmur of the ocean harmonized with the laughter of my community. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the complexities of our stories, the struggles we had faced, and the triumphs we had achieved together. We had charted a course through the turbulence, embraced differences, and emerged stronger as a collective. Tides may rise and fall, but as long as we held true to our hearts and shared our truths, the circle of remembrance would remain an unwavering testament to our resilience. It was only in this unyielding commitment to one another that we forged a bond capable of weathering any storm. Together, we had started a legacy, not just of memories, but of a living understanding of the power of love. Through the waves of the past, we were ready to ride forth into a future full of hope, embracing every moment as part of our shared journey. As the final notes of music carried over the shimmering waves, the night began to wind down, but the air crackled with a lingering energy. A symphony of connections formed through shared experiences and the healing of wounds unspoken. With every lantern released into the night sky, it felt like a piece of our collective grief lifted, drifting toward the horizon as a testament to resilience and transcendence. I stood quietly for a moment longer, enveloped in a sense of peace. The ocean, once a harbinger of sorrow, now felt like a nurturing embrace. I reflected on the journey we had taken, from fragmented lives shadowed by loss to a vibrant community bound together by love and understanding. As the stars twinkled overhead, I gathered my thoughts and approached the mural that had become a beacon of our shared legacy. The vibrant colors illuminated the stories etched into the fabric of our lives, each brushstroke telling the tale of a person lost and remembered. I had seen how these stories changed us, uplifting our spirits, allowing us to move forward while holding tight to the memories of those we could never forget. "Are you ready for this?" I asked the others who stood near, excitement evident in their expressions. "We've never been more ready," Sarah replied, her eyes shining like the lanterns we had released. Taking a deep breath, I stood before our community. Tonight is not just a celebration. It marks a commitment to carry these memories forward, not only as echoes of those we've lost, but also by allowing their legacies to guide us into the future. Together, we will weave a tapestry of love that celebrates every thread of our humanity. As I spoke, heads nodded and eyes gleamed with understanding. I felt the collective heartbeat around me, reminding me that we weren't merely telling tales. We were intertwining our lives with purpose and intent. And from that, something incredible emerged, a vision for the future that we shared as one. "We will take what we've learned from our stories," I continued, "and transform them into actions, acts of compassion, understanding, and advocacy. Each story represents a life, a lesson learned. Together, we will step boldly into our commitments to honor not just our past, but also the resilience of the human spirit." With renewed determination, our community began to plan tangible ways we could make our vision come alive. We discussed initiatives to support families in need, outreach programs that connected those grieving with resources to help rebuild their lives, and events that celebrated the diversity within our community, allowing every member to share their unique narratives. And then came the unexpected. In the weeks following the Lantern Festival, our outreach efforts began to draw in those outside our circle, people who had experienced loss or felt separated from their own communities. They arrived with tentative expressions, unsure but hopeful. It was in those vulnerable faces that I saw the deep-reaching impact we could truly have. One afternoon, a family came to join us, a mother and her 2 children, who had moved to town recently. They had lost their husband and father just months before and were struggling to find their place amid the grief that had settled like a fog over their lives. As they shared their story with us, I could see reflections of our own pain mirrored in their eyes. "Let us carry your lanterns with you," I said softly, inviting them into our circle. The warmth of our community enveloped them, creating a refuge where they could be heard, supported, and understood. In their presence, it became evident that each addition to our circle not only brought their stories, but also added to the depth and richness of our collective narrative. As more families connected with us, we watched the dynamics shift. People began to bond as they shared their truths, fostering understanding not only within our circle, but beyond it. The ripple effect spread through our town, touching those who had felt isolated, suddenly realizing that they belonged to something greater, a vibrant tapestry of life and love. Months passed, and as spring gave way to the warmth of summer, the circle of remembrance evolved into an ongoing support network. Together, we expanded our outreach and involved local businesses to support those in need, raising funds and organizing community events focused on wellness and healing. Each act of kindness breathed life into our collective mission. Now it felt like the ties binding us had transformed into a lifeline, ready to support not only ourselves, but every person who walked through our scene seeking solace. In our journey to hold space for grief, we had unwittingly forged a powerful community committed to uplifting each other and embracing the full spectrum of the human experience. As I gazed around at the faces illuminated by the warm, golden light of the summer sun, I felt proud of what we had achieved together. We were no longer just a circle bound by sorrow. We had blossomed into a sanctuary of support and celebration, a movement dedicated to turning pain into purpose. Standing at the water's edge once again, the cool waves lapped over my feet, reminding me that life continuously ebbs and flows. "We will keep our commitment," I whispered to the ocean, my voice barely audible above its rhythmic lull. And in that moment, I knew that while each of us carried our losses, together we had transformed those burdens into a source of strength that would propel us forward. Our journey had just begun, and as I turned back toward my community, I could see a future brightening before us, a radiant tapestry of stories, lives intertwined, and a legacy we would carry with love, honoring every soul and memory etched upon our hearts. Together, we were not just surviving, we were thriving, forever changed by the power of connection, ready to embrace whatever waves may come next.